Hello everyone, this is Select and welcome to the election campaign. I was a bit slow to make a video as soon as the election was announced, but there's no point looking back. We have to look forward, and today we're looking at this new YouGov MRP released just today. I'm going to take a quick look at it, see what it's saying about the current political climate. It has the Labour Party ahead on the two-party preferred on 50.2%. There was a previous MRP about a month and a half ago, which had the coalition ahead on about 51.49. So it has come in a bit, and it's basically swung the amount of seats completely in the other direction. The last one had the coalition on about 73 seats, Labour on about 66, Independents on 8, and Greens only on 1 seat. This one is very different. So it has the Labour Party on 75 seats, the coalition only on 60, Independents on 11, Greens on 2, and then Katter and Centre Alliance on 1 seat. A piece that has hung Parliament as a 60% probability, but it has the Labour majority on about 38%, coalition majority only on 2%. So it's been a big movement to the Labour Party. I mean, the last month, as I've discussed before, has been a not so good month for the coalition. The data for this actually ends sort of before the budget reply. It does. So maybe, you know, some of the elements of Dutton's budget reply and some of those sort of nice policies like the gas reserve and the fuel tax cut might help Dutton to do a little bit better than he's doing on here. But yeah, this is not a very good result for the coalition. They're down like 2% from the previous YouGov. Labour, I think, only up a little bit. The total votes for the major party, really, really low. Like, look at this. This is like under 66%, well into under 2/3 at this point. One Nation's still really high. Wow, okay. Green's pretty high. Anyway, let's take a look at sort of the changing seats. So the Liberals are only picking up a handful of seats here. They've got Bennelong, Gilmore, Werriwa, Robertson, Lyons. Labour picking up Deakin in Victoria, as well as Griffith and Brisbane from the Greens. The previous MRP had them picking up Ryan as well from the Greens. I believe Ryan is staying with the Greens on this one. And then Independents picking up Cowper and Wannon. I think the most interesting result from this, in my opinion, is Werriwa going to the Libs. My last prediction, I said sort of like, oh, Werriwa, maybe there's too many sort of like voters who are worried about like the whole dual citizenship, like Dutton taking away their citizenship and deporting them and stuff like that. This sort of indicates that maybe that isn't too much of a worry, and maybe there is indeed that baked on anger in a seat like Werriwa, where the coalition actually have a very good chance of picking that one up. But let's take a look at some sort of interesting seats. So I already have here Kingston in South Australia. Again, a big swing to the coalition. We saw this in the previous MRP as well. And if you look at some of these other sort of like outer suburban SA seats, High Marsh isn't quite outer suburban, but yeah, we're getting big swings to the coalition here. But if we look at Boothby, on the other hand, 0.6% swing to the coalition. Like, it's not going anywhere. Like, even seats which I really thought was sort of a shoe-in for the coalition, Patterson, are staying with Labour. Same as McEwen in Victoria, staying with Labour. Like, all of these seats, which are basically must-wins for the coalition, are now in sort of Labour hands. Like Bullwinkle, look at this, 52% to Labour. And then it also has every Teal independent seat staying with their MP as well. Like, I know that there's sort of a bit of a swing in Kooyong. There's like a 1.7% swing to the coalition, but the independent is like retaining that one. Like Curtin, the one that, you know, everyone always insists the independent is going to lose. There's only like a 0.1% swing to the coalition. Lingiari, which is the one where there was like that massive weird blowout swing to the Labour Party. There's still a swing to the Labour Party here. And then Solomon, like, Labour still is holding onto it with a pretty big margin. So, yeah, this is a really good result for Labour. I'm actually surprised that Labour are behind in Robertson, but that's only just by a little bit. And if they win that seat, that means they'll have a majority. Hunter, Labour's still absolutely keeping that. And then if we go to Deakin, which is the one seat Labour is picking up from the coalition, it's like 50-50. So it's really line ball. we're still also seeing these sort of weird swings to Labour in places like Parks and New England and Riverina. So it makes me think that maybe there's some kind of like bias towards moving results towards sort of the center of the two-party preferred. So take with that what you want. It might indicate that in places like La Law, that the swing towards the coalition is not as big as you might think. By the way, like in Victoria, what's interesting is that Chisholm is staying with Labor, but yeah, a lot of those like really safe Labor seats are getting these like massive swings against Labor, such as Scullin, which has like a 9.2% swing to the coalition. So yeah, I don't know how much of this is noise and how much of this we should actually like be reading into. Have a look at this, like Gippsland, 8.2% swing to Labour. Why? Like, I don't know why people in that seat will be swinging to Labour. And again, there's no even independent running as far as I know in Nichols, and it's apparently a two-party preferred between the coalition and independent. And if we go to Wannon, which is the two independent seats, independent just barely ahead of the coalition here. And then if we go to Cowper, they're ahead of the coalition here. Like, I'm wondering if these sort of like regional or outer suburban seats are going to be really swayed by that petrol tax for 12 months decrease thing. Look, I think that's a really cynical. I mean, it's a good policy, but it's a really, really cynical policy. I can't believe Dutton like calls the tax cuts an election bribe, but he defends this as not an election bribe. That's ridiculous. I don't know how many voters are going to see through that. I feel like voters already sort of see through Labor's tax cut, the coffee tax cuts as people call them. I feel like people already sort of see through that. It's going to be difficult for Labor to sort of campaign against that fuel tax. I mean, I feel like Labor should have just supported it. They had every reason to support it. And then, like, if Albo was like the strong man he wishes he was, he would have been like, all right, well, if you like this policy, let's stay another day in Parliament and pass this policy right now through the House and the Senate. And that would have been really funny if the Labor Party just backed it and straight away passed that petrol tax policy, because it would have meant that the petrol prices would have been lower for the election. If I was Albo, I probably would have done that. But yeah, maybe the petrol fuel tax thing will save Dutton's ass in a couple of seats. I'll just have a look at Clare as well, where the coalition is still, pretty ahead here, and Monash, yeah, coalition pretty ahead. So yeah, it's just an MRP. Look, I think it's I think when it comes to independents, it's sort of difficult to sort of work out what's really going on there and Greens and stuff like that. Like, I'll just quickly go to Griffith. I guess the assumption is that like Liberal preferences are maybe going to favour Labor at this point, because like the Greens have gone all like radical and stuff like that. I don't know. I still think the Greens are probably going to win Griffith, but there's just been so much like data at this point saying that the Labor Party are going to win in Brisbane that I think I should start like sort of paying attention to this and maybe say that Brisbane is going to go back to the Labor Party. Although Stephen Bates, did make a very funny Temu Trump joke the other day in Parliament, so maybe that will sway people back onto voting for him again this election. I don't know. My prediction is that probably both the two-party preferred and the seat count will be somewhere between what we see here and what we saw in the previous YouGov. I don't think Labor are going to do this well, not just because of the petrol excise stuff, but I think as we get closer to voting day, the coalition will make the case that, Labor have been in power the last 3 years and everything's gone up, blah, 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 blah. And I think more people will be willing to sort of succumb to the coalition's message that, green energy bad, immigration bad, all of those sort of scapegoats will pay off. I mean, if there's an interest rate cut on Tuesday, it's gonna be not so good for the coalition, because people weren't really expecting the interest rate cut this Tuesday, and if that happens, it's just going to really help Labor's message that the economy is improving, and that's the last thing the coalition needs. So I did a video the other day predicting some possible things that could be in Dutton's budget. The only thing I got right was a domestic gas reserve. I called it a national domestic gas reserve, but it's more like an East Coast gas reserve because I don't want to step on WA's toes. But still, I guess I got that one right. And I think that will sway voters a bit, as I said, the petrol tax cut. But yeah, at this point, I think the coalition doing as well as they did in this MRP, it looks like that time is over. I don't think the coalition have promised, the kind of really substantial, captivating reform that would take them to anywhere near victory. I think their budget reply was decent, but they didn't offer something like mortgage tax breaks, which I thought would really maybe sway things. It's all just kind of like, is this really that much better than Labour? Like, just generally, Labour have sort of been able to sort of manage themselves a lot better the last couple of weeks, and the momentum is absolutely not on for the coalition. They really need Albo to do a bunch more gaffes or something like that if they want to have things go towards their way. But there will be a news poll tonight and probably a bunch of other polls. I know there was a Redbridge poll the other day which had Labour on 51-49. We will see in the next couple of days really how people reacted to the budget and the budget reply, see what people prefer better. I think some voters will really just look at that fuel tax break and go like, I'm just voting on that because they needed all the help they can get and they think it's more immediate than the tax cut. Look, it's a really fucking cynical policy, but it works. It works. And I think Labour should have just supported it, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, that's the video, everyone. Short one today. I just wanted to briefly cover this. But yeah, very good stuff for Labour. And obviously, if the election was held on April 12th, things would be looking amazing for them. But there's a lot of time left for the election, and I think things will get a bit better for the coalition by then. That is my prediction. Goodbye, everyone. An actual seat by seat prediction will probably be coming within the next week. We need some more polling data and stuff like that. Goodbye.